Dan's appearances on One Bills Live, presented by Caesars Sportsbook, an official mobile sports betting partner of the Buffalo Bills. Dan, let's rehash Bills Broncos first before we get to the heavyweight matchup. And I remember talking to you last week, and I asked you about Buffalo's run game, and you're like, I don't know if that's a great idea. Denver's a top 3 run defense, and look at this. I mean, Buffalo's offensive line made a big statement in this thing, rushing for over 200.
Yeah, Chris, I think the most impressive thing was I feel it was probably the most diverse run game that they've had all year. And, we've talked about how, what Joe Brady's done is sometimes there's a beauty in the simplicity. They'll run the same 2 or 3 runs all game and they'll dress them up and make them into different formations and whatnot. But, and credit to them that it's been a simplistic approach to that and it's been really good. But I counted. And this is why I say the most diverse run game. I counted 9 different runs in this game from them, and in so many different ways, personnel wise. We saw some of their 2-back run game when they had 2 legit backs in the game, and then they had some what looked like 2-back, but Curtis Samuel was playing in that position. We saw the fullback Gilliam get snaps again a little bit out of the blue and different run out of that. I think we saw some different runs and some bunch formations, and so some tosses and some duos, different ways that they pulled certain people. So that was probably the most impressive part schematically is how and one of the teams that I guess in the course of the last 2 years has really been the kind of benchmark when it comes to run game diversity is the Lions. They throw so much at you scheme wise. Kind of felt like I was watching one of their games in regards to that. And then I know Tony Romo was mentioning this on the broadcast, but the tape absolutely reaffirms it. Is I thought James Cook vision was sensational. Like his ability to wait for the hole and then get through the hole. That vision and burst was one of the better performances when it comes to that I've seen all season. So it was in many ways I don't want to say flawless, but a big time performance by that whole group.
What do you think fit this running game into the Baltimore run defense? They're the best team. They're the best run defense in the league. They're really good at it. Certainly it's a rock and a hard place. The Bills' run game has been pretty good, but I don't know that it's been number 1 run defense in the league good. What do you think?
Yeah, obviously the size of Baltimore defensively is a big deal across the board, and so that's one of the reasons why that they're so good in the run. I think the second thing is, Steve, they do such a great job of having hands, and they're really handsy in the run game. It's not like they're not a big defensive line that wants to get penetration right now and create a TFL or try to get a back to stop his feet. They do a really good job of kind of what we call that 2 gap where they're strong and powerful and they'll shed a block and trying to make sure that they have really good gap sound integrity. So like the size of that, Roquan is sensational as a linebacker when it comes to just his vision to the ball and whatnot. I think they tackle really well in space as well. Marlon Humphrey, he's a lot like Taryn, when it comes to they'll put Marlon in that run and pass game world. And so they don't commit a ton of numbers to the pass game. It's a little bit, at least theoretically, like the Bills when it comes to the starting point of the wanted play shell, but it's just a really strong defense at the point of attack.
Conversely, though, I would think the Bills are going to want to penetrate because the only way you slow Derrick Henry down is to get him to reroute his angle of entry. You need him going east-west. He's a lot easier to tackle that way. So is penetration kind of the key for Buffalo in run defense, or?
Yeah, 100%. One last thing that Baltimore will do is they'll put 5 guys at the line of scrimmage, and they'll put hat on hat, which will be interesting to see how Buffalo handles it. And then the thing is, if it's a pass, they'll drop one of those guys out and still have 7 guys in coverage. For Buffalo, yes, I mean it is huge to get penetration. I think the if you had to ask me like the one specific matchup that I'm going to be fascinated to watch is in both the run and the pass, who does Buffalo put over Baltimore's right guard, Falele? Really good player. He's only done this throughout the season. His one thing that he has struggled with consistently is quickness. You got to win versus him with quicks. And obviously, Oliver, Smoot, Epinesa maybe in pass game stuff. I think that'll be a really interesting thing. So yes, you have to get penetration versus Derrick Henry. You have to make sure you try to get him to stop his feet and make a cut, because if he gets going with momentum, he's tough to stop. I do think the really interesting part of this game when it comes to McDermott and Babbage is last week, Baltimore, for the first time all year, they put 6 offensive linemen on the field to run the football. So hear me out with this. They put 6 offensive linemen and Patrick Ricard on the field.
Right.
That's 7 human beings that are 300 pounds or more. So my brain tells me there's no way, if you're Buffalo, you could just line up with your 4-man front, your nickel defense versus that, and say, hey, here we go. Because it's just big body versus little body. I think it'll be very interesting to see how they counter and or plan for that, because it was a big part of what Baltimore did, and it was super successful.
Right, and you see some of these teams now, and Buffalo did a little bit. I mean, they got the game was a little bit out of reach. Excuse me. It was 4th and 1, and that's on the Ty Johnson touchdown pass. The Bills don't line up in shotgun 4 wide in 4th and 1, but they did it late in that game. So you saw these teams, particularly like a game like the one that the Steelers and Baltimore Ravens got into, and the Bills got into it with the Denver Broncos. These games, you start to sprinkle in some stuff that we haven't seen these teams do. Do you think there's a little more of that going on?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was a philosophy of Baltimore. Now, maybe it was a little bit attached to no Zay Flowers. I mean, we saw them get into the Wildcat and use Lamar Jackson in motion, and they snapped it directly to Derrick Henry and faked it to Lamar. So, when the 4th and 1 happened for Buffalo, like it was a 13-7 game with 18 minutes to go in the game. So I think it was very much so still, I guess, a ball game. It felt like certainly Buffalo was in control of it, but it's still, the outcome was still in limbo. This game is going to be awesome, because I do think that 95% of what you're going to do on an offense, the other team is going to have a pretty good beat on of what you're trying to do. But there is that 5% of, each offense has kind of done so much this year that there's always that unknown of, okay, what else can they get to? And so that'll be a really interesting part to see of what defense is kind of better prepared for some of that stuff.
You might know this already, but in that first meeting in Week 4, the Bills did not have any member of their defense from the second level in the lineup. No Terrell Bernard, no Matt Milano, no Taron Johnson in that game. They have all 3 of them for this one. And look, Taron Johnson may not play as much as he usually does, especially if you're seeing their jumbo package come out on the field with Ricard. But all that being said, I'm curious for your thoughts on Milano's level of play in the Jets game in Week 17, this past week against Denver, because we're feeling like we're seeing old Matt Milano coming back, just the way he's triggering and firing. It looks like he's seeing it and reacting like we're used to seeing Milano.
Because I think the word you just said is spot on, the reaction. The instincts seem to kind of be coming back in both the run and the pass. I think a couple times when he ran people down this past week, kind of didn't see that in Week 17. I think early on in that game, he ran down Bo Nix on a scramble.
Yes.
And so, it's nice to see that come back. I think the that second level where those 3 guys weren't there and are there is huge, because if you go back to that first game, one of the massive takeaways was, oh my gosh, they just took advantage of Buffalo's eyes, and they had them completely running side to side, and it just vacated space. And it was kind of, in a mocking way, so easy for Baltimore. So to have the discipline of that group back is going to be huge. To have the speed of that group back is going to be huge. I also think just having the ability, and I'm not saying that it's going to be a shutout by Milano, but just have the ability for Milano to be in some situations a spy on Lamar is going to be a huge deal in some of those pass game situations. We talked about this yesterday. With the unknown of Zay Flowers, does he play? Because it's a big deal if he doesn't. And how healthy is he going to be? We've watched this defense be a little bit more comfortable playing some man coverage over the past 5, 6, 7 weeks than in the past. I think that'd be something that'd be even more comfortable playing if there is no Zay Flowers. And if you're doing that, you want to have eyes on Lamar Jackson. And I think Milano would be a prime candidate to be that person more often than not.
Let's flip it over and talk about Josh Allen in the passing game. We saw once again, for the second week in a row, actually, Curtis Samuel was the leading receiver for the Bills. They got him in the game against the Patriots to get him kind of his feet back under him. Then he came out and had the big game again this last week. The tight ends combined for 6 catches. I mean, Josh was 20 of 26. And the Ravens, and I think as a result of teams trying to keep up with Lamar and Derrick Henry, teams are throwing the football on these guys. They're one of the lowest 31st in the league in pass defense, probably because nobody can take the time to run the ball because they're trying to catch Lamar and Derrick Henry on the scoreboard. But still, nevertheless, there it is. How do you think Josh Allen and the weapons he's got mesh against the secondary and the pass rush?
Yeah, that pass defense has gotten a lot better ever since they moved Hamilton back and Humphrey gone inside and Wiggins on the outside. I think they're really disciplined with their coverage right now. They're not giving up a ton of big plays, and everyone's going to point to, the Steelers had 2. One of them was a perfect hole shot by Russell Wilson. I think the pass game is this. My big takeaway of Josh's past performance is, again, the discipline. And I do think that there was the way they structured the pass game, it was high to low. He wasn't trying to see 4 or 5 things. It was 1, 2, high to low. And he was very disciplined in that decision-making. So that's going to be needed again. You got to figure out ways to take shots at Brandon Stevens. As much as I respect him as a pro, number 21 is the defensive back that teams have had consistent success against. And so you got to take shots at him. I think Amari is a big guy in that game when they present it. I think Keon Coleman is a big guy in that game when they present it. The Shakir versus Humphrey matchup is going to be awesome. Guys, I really think I'm talking about all this scheme and all that. I really believe this game in many ways will come down to what quarterback kind of plays their game. What quarterback can handle the moment. And when he doesn't have to do too much, don't do too much. And when you have to kind of go make a play, make that play. And so, because both of these players, while remarkable, have had a lot of their career when they've done just that, and have had moments when they've tried to do too much or, and gotten ahead of themselves a little bit. And I think whatever guy kind of plays to that disciplined style and then 4 or 5 times ratchets it up when it's needed, I think goes a long way to seeing who wins.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Dan, thanks as always for the time. We appreciate it. Enjoy this game this weekend.
Thanks, Dan.
It's going to be tight.
Have fun, guys. It's going to be awesome. Yeah, enjoy it.